Hey, listen, everyone. Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat. I'm your host, Samuel Claiborne, filling in for Jose Otero. I'm here with Per.
Up, yo, come.
Brian.
Bruh, bruh.
And Marty.
Hi.
Jose is down in Los Angeles at a pre-E3 event. That seems like it would be a lot of fun. I've never been to this mysterious Judges Week.
Do they wear robes?
Judge, but we don't know anything about it, and we can't even say anything about it.
Do they get to interview Judge Judy?
Yeah, the event does not exist. They're not seeing
Except for the fact that they're all tweeting it out.
being announced.
Are they?
I think so.
Yeah. All I
don't
know is
actually
that
know
we
that.
can say there's a thing called Judges Week.
Well, Steve was like, I played a game with my friends where we had to kill a big alien. I'm like, oh, that's probably every game this fall.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a lot of games. It's Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
I hope it's at least one game that he's not just making that up. So we got some great topics for you today, including a look at the very, very distant past. 1999,
A Link to the
1994.
Past?
Oh, I was in college.
We're going to talk about E3s of yore, and specifically what Nintendo was doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and possibly even 20 years ago.
Jeez.
Brian's eyes just opened
Yeah.
up.
And also we're going to talk about these crazy Nintendo figurines that were announced.
Yeah.
But first, as usual, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. Unfortunately, I think all of what we've been playing is what we've been playing for the last 3 weeks anyway, right? Which is Mario Kart.
Mario.
But it just got a 9 on IGN.
Yeah, we reviewed it.
Jose reviewed it. That's
Yeah.
it? Is that what you said?
No, I said it's good.
Yeah.
I think
good.
I think everybody
It's
likes
excellent.
everybody likes everything about that game except for the communication when setting up multiplayer. I mean, you can talk while in the lobby, but you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
I've been listening to the last couple podcasts you guys have done. You pretty much only talked about Mario Kart. So
Yeah,
we'll keep it
We're
short.
not going to go
and I think it's
yeah,
really
into detail,
good.
but I think everybody loves it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah,
loves
I
it.
think it's great.
One topic that nobody brought up so far is how awesome the slow motion wrap-ups are.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
the Mario
it is
Kart
such
TV
a
feature.
big hit in the office and at my house where if something happened during that match, it doesn't even matter. Whatever the match was, you can slow it and you can reverse time and slow it minutely to just see like this completely crazy
Yeah,
hit.
we have
So,
a really cool feature on the site. Jose and one of our video guys, Mike Horn, worked on. I think it was like the 11 awesome slow-mo moments of Mario Kart.
Mario
And it's
Kart in
just-
slow motion,
like, Mario
yeah.
Kart in slow motion,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just gorgeous. And they have it like paired to some classic song, and yeah, it's really great.
Strauss, yeah, they have
look at that.
the same music as in 2001. Remember
Whoa.
that one? Yeah.
Sorry,
We got the
sorry,
rights to
Kubrick.
Strauss.
The Danube, you know what? He's been long dead, so yes.
So as long as you're
Suck it,
dead, we can take their
Strauss.
music.
Yeah.
Put Biggie and Pac and everything.
I've been playing Child of Light on my Wii U.
Me too.
Yeah.
Not on my Wii U, but I've been playing Child.
That's a
of
really
Light
good video game.
Are you going to finish it?
at the beginning.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
I enjoy it. It's not grabbing me the way I thought it would.
Sure.
It's very slow to start, and then it kind of picks up for a little while, and then you're like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing. And if you really love that, then it probably soars for you. But if you're
Yeah.
just sort of okay with it, then... I mean, I want to finish it because it's like a 10-hour-long RPG, which is what I always
Like
ask
South
for.
Park, yeah.
Yeah, and someone made it for me,
Yeah.
and now I feel like I should because all I ever complain about is how RPGs
Yeah.
are too long.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'll try to find time. Mario Kart came in and just took over everything for
Took
me.
over
Yeah.
everything.
That's
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, the thing about Mario Kart, I love Mario Kart. The one thing that has me worried about the online chat is that it's going to be the exact same as Smash. That's sort of my big fear, is
Yeah.
that if Nintendo doesn't
Yeah.
fix this in the next 6 months, Smash is going to be a very quiet online
Well,
game.
Smash is a very fast game, so they need to keep latency down. Probably will not turn on chat, but the one difference is 12 players versus 4, right?
Yeah,
If-
that's true.
If there's a game where it's a little easier to pull off the chat, then it
Yeah,
would be that
12,
one.
12-player crosstalk could get a little much.
But I think some of the limitations with chat are by design, right? Nintendo doesn't let you talk to strangers, basically. You know,
Yeah.
they don't want to risk kids talking to strangers in voice chat, and
Sure.
obviously the other companies set up like these preventative measures, right? Like you have to with Xbox, if you sign up an account for a minor, a parent has to go in with his credit card information and register, and actually pay a small fee just to register. Like there are all these things, and Nintendo has something similar. But anyone can create an online profile.
yeah,
right?
I mean, it's just, it's a bummer that the four of us can't play an online game and chat with each other the whole time.
No, true.
Yeah.
You know what's also kind of a bummer is that if you three were playing an online game and weren't chatting with each other, you still couldn't let me know that you weren't playing the game unless you texted me because
Yeah.
you can't even send like an alert or anything.
Yeah.
It's a
But
weird
I don't really
limitation.
care about this stuff. Like I really want to play that game with friends in a room.
And-
so
and
Me too.
that's-
I
and
don't
that's
want to get too
absolutely-
down on it. because of
absolutely.
this.
And that's
Me
where,
too.
exactly. That's where it excels too. Like even if you are not a multiplayer gamer and you've only bought, you only have a nunchuck and maybe 3 Wii remotes and a classic controller, whatever.
It works
Like
with
you
all
can
of them.
use any combination of controllers to play. If you don't want to have the gamepad as player one, you can turn the remote sideways and steer this way, or you can use a nunchuck.
I was actually having a lot of those discussions with Jose when he was putting together his review, and obviously I'll let him speak on behalf of that when he gets here. But he said, a lot of my big problems with the game are this, and this with the online, and you can't do this and this. And I was like, hey, none of those are an issue for me because I have very little willingness to go online and play because I have people I can play with. Like my fiance plays with me, and that's all I need. If I have people over and a few drinks and we're playing, like that's more for me. I'm like, so for you, maybe the game is a 9, but for me, it's like a 9.5 because I'm not going to use all these things you're having a problem with, which I know is bad because it gives Nintendo like more and more of a free pass to never get this stuff right. Because there's always old holdouts like me, but that's to me the way Mario Kart is best played, is like sitting right next to a bunch of people.
And you have fond memories of the crew that you played with for kind of each series.
From 64.
And like I was kind of worried now, like I moved since the last time I really played Mario Kart a lot to San Francisco, which, that was already 5 years ago this May. To take this job, but interestingly, like all of my friends had moved on by then. Like I was worried I wouldn't have a posse to play Mario Kart anymore, but I have that in the office and stuff. But then it turned out that the people that are coming over to watch Game of Thrones now every Sunday also were like, "Oh, you have the new Mario Kart!" And now I have like this new group, and I'm like forming new memories of this great.
That's awesome. I mentioned this on the last show, but my fiance had never played a Mario Kart game before ever, and does not play 3D games. She plays all the Mario like 2D side scrollers with me and stuff like that, and games like Rayman, obviously. But I gave her the controller, and within an hour she was power sliding, and she was beating me in races and hitting me with shells. And I'm like, this is awesome. She got it.
And I think that's where the impact, though, is felt that Mario Kart is so great with 4 players in one room. You can't really compare to a Call of Duty where, like, you can do 2-player split screen or whatever, but it's like it's just not the same, right? And so when you then take the experience online, the lack of just being able to, like, when I hit you with a shell to say I got you all time, right? Like it is a limitation. It does impact you. And I played a ton with Otero and some other people online, and like we ran into these moments where I'm like, oh my god, I got that bastard, and I couldn't tell him until afterwards, and that's where it's impactful.
I really like looking at the other screens too.
We had a ton of fun, even with the silent multiplayer. It worked really, really well. We had no latency, no lag. It was it was great. And so I see this game as a step forward. It's like it's better than the last games, and it has an online component that works really well and has a great tournament setup mode. And so, like, I just, I see it as a stepping stone. It's just going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite since Double Dash.
Great. I mean, it just handles so well, too. Everything about it is so good.
Yep. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what's in the news, or what has been in the news, which is these Nintendo figurines. What's up, everybody? We're back, and we're going to talk about these little toys that Nintendo's finally putting out. And I'm saying finally because I think we've expected them to do this for a long time. And what I'm talking about is last week, Nintendo showed off this one little Mario figurine, and they said this was going to interact directly with the Wii U gamepad, stores information, can send information. It also will fit on a little platform that will send and store information to 3DS games, and it will work across titles. So this is not the exact same thing as Disney Infinity or Skylanders, because this might work for a Smash Brothers game and a Zelda game or something like that. We have no idea.
Presumably, I mean, that's the question, right? You have to code these games with that feature, and Nintendo does have a habit of getting distracted when it announces hardware and following something else. But it's like, Skylanders is not talked about as much as it really should be, because it was a game that really... What do you got there?
The little disc for your
3DS. It's like a little puck.
It's much smaller than the Skylanders.
That's right, because they
But
need
on
a
the Wii U
scanner,
gamepad, we've known this since the Wii U was first announced, that it actually had a little dot where I was like, what is that thing?
It's a little those squares,
and so like Skylanders really, I mean, it made Activision a ton of money, and it wasn't conceived from the get-go to be this kind of like cash grab of making parents buy lots of figurines, right? It was Toys for Bob, a company that was just really passionate about the concept of toys and video games intersecting.
For Bob.
Right, for Bob. And so they drove this idea, and they Activision eventually funded it and made this game. And it's a great idea. It's a really fantastic idea that you can save data on something, take it with you, and it's been confined in the Skylanders universe, and they're doing these revisions where now they split in half, and so you have to buy even more toys.
I don't really
right?
understand what it contributes to. It seems like a memory stick.
Well,
you have a bunch of memory sticks, and I know they'll come up with a cool thing to do with it, probably, hopefully. But with Skylanders, I feel like it is definitely a Trojan horse to get a bunch of toys.
It is, but it adds ownership.
Yeah.
It adds physical ownership to something that is otherwise digital, right? Like your relationship with the character you choose changes the moment that you have a different character that you always stick with than you. Like in Smash Brothers, we get this, right? Like you'll always play as Donkey Kong or Pikachu, and you kind of start to own this character, but it actually takes on a completely different life of its own, I think, when you have the physical product there, too, that you're proud of and building up,
really
and you bring it out.
About
yeah.
Have you guys ever thought about how lame it is that these are not actual action figures?
Yeah.
That you can't actually do, like little statues.
They should have little G.I. Joe type arms or something, just like... I think you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
Like I've always wanted just like a line of nice Nintendo toys, and there have been lines of nice Nintendo toys now that I'm an adult that I don't want. But when I was a kid, I was like, I wish I just had some cool Mario toys that McDonald's didn't make.
Honestly, it probably just comes down to how low they can go in terms of age demographics that they can sell these, because you give something moving arms and a kid will choke on it.
Yep. Yeah, you can't give them a Boba
Yeah,
Fett
I mean
rocket
the whole concept is odd to me
Skylanders
because
have wings you could bite off. Though.
When I was growing up and I had toys, I also had this thing. They don't make it anymore. It was
Battle Beast?
Barbie?
No,
Light Bright.
Muscleman?
Imagination. And I could take my toys and I could go in the backyard and bring them all over the house and have them going on adventures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But now you need a video game to do that.
Sure.
To scan them in and put them in. But the one thing no one ever talks about with Skylanders is how awesome of a game it is, because it's not. So I think Nintendo has a chance now to come in and do something that is this concept plus a great platform game, plus great Smash Brothers, plus something like that. I mean
Skylanders
like
is just
Infinity.
Gauntlet, right?
People
Like
think
you guys
Infinity's
all played it?
Yeah.
Skylanders is Gauntlet, right?
Sure.
It's not amazing. It's a simple game.
You smash through stuff.
The same way that
It's like Lego
the same way that the Lego games are not amazing in their gameplay elements. It's like it just comes together because of the presentation and the multiplayer and everything.
Yeah, whereas Disney Infinity does have like actual smart gameplay and really like creative mechanics and everything, which I hope is something that Nintendo's going towards. I mean, the interesting thing about these Nintendo toys too is if they do spread across numerous games, it would be neat to have since characters like Mario and Luigi and Pikachu appear in so many different games, to have a sort of single profile where something you do in Smash with Mario is saved to that toy, and if you bring him to Mario Tennis on Wii U, he has something because of that power you unlocked in Smash.
Yeah.
To be able to sort of, I don't know, cross-pollinate
like that Mario's
between the video
been
games.
in other games.
Yeah, and so the
he
games
carries
recognize
something
it.
Over.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
the memory card in your GameCube.
Yeah, absolutely.
When, Psycho Mantis.
Jose had an awesome idea for these that was basically you take like the Mario figure and you put the ROM file for Super Mario Brothers 1 on it for the NES, and you have it in store shelves. And now all of a sudden, someone like me, my age, is walking through, hypothetically, if I have a kid and I don't work with children all day like you guys. But if I'm a dad and I have a kid and I haven't played Mario Brothers in ages, I'm walking through the toy aisle with my son and I see like the toilet with my son, me and my son on the toilet. And I see this like Mario figure on the shelf and it says comes with 1985 NES Super Mario Brothers.
Because you need another version of that.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty cool to get
$300
that
system not included.
Yeah, not included. To get that sort of presence, their virtual console has no sort of store presence right now. You have to be in the eShop, which you were there already.
What if it was
every
version of Mario and his like 8-bit sprite?
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The key to like the collection aspect of this is like when you want all the Pokemon like on like a little shelf, and you're just like, here's my Pokemon Rumble shelf, even if the game stinks,
Right.
And so I think like with Nintendo characters that could end up being really nice. I just hope they're not the too generic like Mario Party. Nintendo
I agree. Like, I want to see them do the one
cool.
they have now, but I also want to see them do 8-bit Mario. I want to see the polygon Super Mario 64
because you got to remember,
Mario
like
Mario
Skylanders toys, even though they're not posable, that they look so cool.
They
have like a bunch of like clear plastic, and they're really detailed, and they're like when I was really attracted to toys when I was a kid, like Battle Beast, like I mentioned. Like I really like good monster designs. And I think that's what Skylanders. Really
and Disney Infinity totally nails it too. Where they basically took one art style and they applied it across all of their properties, and it looks great. Like it's one of those things where you can take, even if you have no, like, you don't care about the game at all. Like my fiance has Wreck-It Ralph just on her desk at work because it's just a really cool figure, and it just sits there. And she's never played the game and she never will, but I just like the design of it. And if Nintendo can kind of do something like that and get their,
I would say Nintendo's already sort of done that with Smash.
Well, they are doing
Smash is
Smash,
able to, the character like Solid Snake and Mega Man and Pikachu and Mario are able to exist in the same game and not look just horrifying.
They mashed them up, and you have Wind Waker's Link in there alongside the classic one. But I just think this is all about potential. Like, Nintendo could do something killer with this concept, right? Like, if they put out a figure for every character that's in Smash Brothers, and then 3 months later, 4 new characters are added as DLC content, and you buy these, you have to maybe buy the character to get the DLC. Yeah. That's freaking awesome, right? Because then I feel like I'm not just getting charged for something digital, I'm actually getting this physical product.
But then I don't want to open the package.
But no, maybe you can put it through the NFC thing, can read through your package.
Look at this headline.
But Nintendo turned down Skylanders' exclusivity deal.
Remember that?
That did happen.
That was revealed. Polygon did the legwork on that story a little while ago. It's really interesting. Skylanders, Activision came to Nintendo and they said, "We're going to do these figures. We want you to be our first partner in it." But it was still for Skylanders. It wasn't like an idea for figures. And Nintendo apparently deliberated for a long time and then turned it down. And now it seems like maybe they turned it down because we can do that, but do it better, maybe. Or maybe now they're thinking, why didn't we do that?
I'm sure they thought it was a brilliant idea, right? And maybe that's why the NFC thing got added. I mean, the NFC sensor was not on the Wii U gamepad from the get-go. That was added, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe they just said,
there was one iteration, and then we saw the next iteration with that little dot in it.
Do you guys think this will be a big part of the E3 Direct?
I hope so.
I don't know.
Apparently, they're going to have video for all 3 days of E3, right? So it's going to be part of it somehow.
It's got to be something. Like I've said before, Smash Brothers on the Wii U is going to have to introduce a cool new feature. I don't know if this is it because they also show the socket for the 3DS, right? But maybe that's how they announce Wii U Smash Brothers with kind of this extended.
Yeah, totally.
Also, I would legitimately die if they Trojan horse 20 years ago into those McDonald's toys if they have chips in them.
Oh my god!
You get your Mario that you plunge down and jumps up.
So that's the big thing, right? Is that cool. we've Nintendo fans have wanted legitimate branded figurines and toys from Nintendo for ages, and they just only until the last few years they started trickling them out. Little things like there's that set on the shelf back
stuff like Hot Topic.
But nothing like this, like a full line of Nintendo toys, right? So it's nice to see them get into that, especially because they were a toy maker to begin with.
Do you remember the Star Wars Kenner figures all of us had as kids, right?
Best toys ever made.
They were great, and they were posable, by the way, and you could swallow the lightsaber until they redid it and all that. But
I did.
One thing that was interesting, they had a line that came out later, I think, with the prequels, where there was a little chip in each package.
That's right.
They put it on his reader, and it's
voice clips.
I am your father.
Yeah, the original toys actually were remade with those, so you could put it on the Millennium Falcon stuff. The Simpsons toys are like that, too.
Those are awesome.
I have a few reader reactions because our question of the week last week was, what do you think of Nintendo's NFC figurines? And we should say NFC is just like an industry weird term, but Nintendo's using it, and it means near-field communication.
Yeah, and a lot of mobile phones have
Bluetooth or infrared.
Nintendo figurine collection.
I know, that's the thing. And they're calling them Nintendo figurines. And plug, we have already a Nintendo figurines wiki with Mario's the only big entry in there. But
this is an exhaustive wiki.
It already has more information than any other site has about.
How did you get all that work done?
Well, we go into NFC and how it works and stuff like that. It's really cool. Good. And I could use people's help kind of filming or forming a force to kind of take on that wiki after E3. I want to be so on top of that collection. Anyway, so we got some reactions. The first is from Chris English. He says, to NVC, having worked at GameStop last year around the holidays and witnessing the Skylanders Disney Infinity craze and, more importantly, cost, I'm both excited by the idea and dreading it. Imagine a game like Super Mario 3D World, but with the ability to play as a bunch of different Nintendo characters. If done right, with interesting levels, if Link feels like Link, Mario feels like Mario, etc., then it sounds like it could be a lot of fun, but also sounds like a money sink that'll be difficult to resist. Thanks for the podcast. Curious to hear your reactions. And I think the same thing. It's going to be expensive.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive. And also, it's a cool idea. Imagine, an NES remix, how you're able to play through, Super Mario as Link. If you're able to be I can play through the original Super Mario as anyone I want.
anyone else.
As Pikachu, as
Whenever Skylanders stuff is announced, Steve Butts, who has kids that are a little younger than your kids, I think, who love Skylanders, always just groans.
Because it's like, oh, here we go. Here's more. But you mentioned a great thing before with the Kenner action figures, the Star Wars ones. Because when I think of those, I don't just think of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. I think of how they made like the bartender from Tatooine.
Face gonk droid.
And how I was just like, I'd be in a store and I'd be like, I need him. He was great. He was in the corner of Jabba's palace smoking a cigarette. I don't even know anything about that guy.
Love that.
So if Nintendo can capitalize on that, which you get the first, and I think if Nintendo launches this, they'll put out 8 figures at the start. Mario will be one of them. Maybe Zelda, and then there will be like Lakitu, and then like 5 other ones that
like
you're just
garbage
like,
characters.
Yeah. And they'll trickle them out in Series 2, 3, 4. You have to get in on every one to get a full Mario collection or get a full Link or Zelda collection. So
the question is though, like, those characters are not created equal, right? Like, you could imagine Nintendo adding Mario, Luigi, Samus, like, options to many games. Like Mario Party, for example. It's like, maybe Samus will be unlocked in the game. Like, but Lakitu, like, floats on a cloud, doesn't even have legs when he's walking around. Like, it's going to be hard to shoehorn some of those other characters into these games.
You can put Lakitu in a cart in Mario Kart.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, but he's not going to jump around in Mario 3D.
No, he's not. He'll just fly to the top of the flagpole. So I don't need this.
All right, here's another reaction. Here's a cool one. We kind of touched on some of these topics. This is Ryan from San Diego, California. Longtime reader. Back in 1997, during the N64.com days, I find the news of Nintendo figures absolutely fantastic. I don't know what he's talking about there. But he says, I just started collecting the Japanese Figma Nintendo figures. I'm not part of the norm as I am a 31-year-old male. But with that being said, I also have every Disney Infinity figure as well.
That's totally the norm.
Yeah, that is the norm for our listeners. And there is a market out there for Nintendo to capitalize on. This has crazy potential to make money to offset the losses from Wii U. It's a big loss.
That's a lot of money.
Let's not forget that Nintendo isn't strictly a video game company, that they were a card manufacturer and created toys. Good point.
They are the ultimate crazy toy maker.
Yep. They also have like sex houses. Companion houses.
Love hotels.
Love hotels.
Taxis.
Not sex houses.
That doesn't sell.
Ramen noodles.
The Figma figurines are exactly what you guys were talking about, where it's like posable figures. Like,
those
it's actually something
There's the
you put
Link
on
and
your
the
shelf.
Samus one.
Do we have those in the office?
We have
those
Link.
are funny because they're a little heavy for their frames, I think, so they have like a stick behind them.
Yeah.
I don't know much about contemporary like collector toys,
Yeah.
but some of these things always strike me as funny. So like they're really posable, but they're actually on like a clear thing, like just leaning on it.
Well, because you can do
remember,
leaping
like,
jumps and stuff too.
Yeah, if you have like a
okay.
He-Man, it's hard to
Yeah.
get him to stand up straight.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they have the holes in the bottom. Or Kenner did that, right?
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Everybody has holes in their bottom.
IGN.
I do want to move on to our retro segment, but we can read one more of these.
I like how he doesn't even react. He just keeps going. Keep going. Yeah.
I got
It's
you.
like a little choo-choo train.
Oh, you
What do you
guys.
got?
This one's from
It's a
Kazdan.
showstopper right there.
Kazdan Risk. To NVC, I love this idea. I would buy little Nintendo statues by themselves. Add to that in-game bonuses, I'm sold. I know it won't slide with some people, but I wouldn't mind this integrated into Kart or Smash DLC. A Bowser Jr. NFP figurine that adds Bowser Jr. to any Mario Kart would be bought immediately. A Mewtwo figurine with Smash would be sold like crazy, I think. So I just thought that was funny because, he's really partial to these Nintendo characters and like feels like ownership over what he plays as in these games. And I'm like, I don't really feel that way. But I know, like, my wife, like, loves playing as Yoshi in Mario Kart, so maybe people will have, they'll have to get that character.
I think that's the difference to Skylanders, too, where a lot of these characters, you kind of want them because he's like, oh, he's the wood guy or the fire guy, right? But you don't have a relationship with that character yet.
Yeah.
Whereas with Nintendo, you see every character, you're like, oh, I love that one. I love that character. And you have all these memories of playing the game.
I feel like if Nintendo was a grimier company, Smash would come with 3 characters, and then each additional character would be like $10 toy you have to buy.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of what this is right on the cusp of, right? Like, I mean, Capcom puts out a fighting game and they go, well, we'll sell you alternate costumes for $5-6 each, and people riot.
Yeah.
But if they're like, if you buy a toy,
Yeah.
you're like, oh yeah, give me all the toys. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
It's a good trick. I want Mario Kart DLC, right? I want more characters.
I would love that.
I want more battle mode stages. More.
I want real
more
battle
cups.
mode.
I don't need
garbage
toys for
battle
that.
mode.
I'll just buy the DLC.
Well, what if you can't?
Any track upgrades would be fantastic.
What if you have to buy an
get a
actual
little
track? Yeah.
Scan parts.
Well, that would be the playset, right? Like Micro Machines style.
Sorry,
And you have to
sorry, I'm
scan
late,
it
honey.
in.
That's what Nintendo should have gone for, is the Micro Machines angle. But
And
we're going to do
Sigma.
Skylanders, but very tiny.
They could do that.
They
I don't think
that's what
choking
Pokemon
hazards.
is.
Was there a single Micro Machine you couldn't choke on?
I choked
Like
on
the
all.
chokiest
I ate them
toys
all.
of all time.
Yeah, I ate them all. I don't know. They're all delicious.
Pear tried.
Did you have Micro Machines in Germany?
They were called Micro Machines.
So that
I'm
means
kidding. It's Micro Machines.
The Micro Machines game came out there too. I'm
Yes.
sure that was a good game.
Yeah.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about E3s of yore. Hey everyone, we're back, and we're talking about E3 because it's in 25 days.
That's terrifying.
Oh God.
But you know what happened 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago at E3? Well, we're going to talk about that right now because some of us were actually at those E3s. Actually, only one of us was at most of the E3s we're going to talk about. But what we're going to do is we're going to do this thing that Retronauts does. My favorite podcast, I love it. They do a thing every New Year's Eve where they count back 5 years, and 10 years, and 15 years, and talk about gaming of the past that way. But we're only going to talk about Nintendo at E3.
Yep.
Going back. I think we're going to start back as early as we can reach, which is pre-E3, because the first E3 was in 1995. In 1994, though, there was a little thing, actually a very big thing, called Summer CES. Same thing as CES now, but it's in the summers in Chicago, Illinois. And at the time, Nintendo showed up, and they had a giant booth.
They did.
With Donkey Kong.
We just watched a video on it.
We did. We watched a really cool video of this guy walking around CES, and there was booths for Atari.
Mm-hmm.
And
a big Jaguar line.
Yeah. And it was like it was an E3 for companies that mostly are gone now.
Yeah, it was really sad. Ocean.
I mean, video games. Obviously, video games were already a big business, but they were kind of handled as an extension of the consumer electronics business, right?
Yeah.
That's why there was no separate show for games back then. It was all part of CES.
It was definitely a floor area was all games by this point because there had been CSs going further back. I'm actually reading a book right now about the console wars, and CS was a big deal, and E3 just kind of came out of it, saying like, you know what? It is of course. And it's just there was enough game stuff that kind of started taking over. I think CES
every year it was a little less. Even after E3 started, there was still significant gaming presence.
Oh, really?
And actually, even 5 years into E3, Microsoft still had a really big booth at CES, but they focused more on kind of like not Microsoft, but some of the early guys. But Microsoft more recently started focusing on the kind of the add-ons, the stuff you can do with the Xbox instead of focusing on the hardware and the games.
Yeah. So at CES this year, I don't know if they gave a presser. I know they gave a presser, but I don't know what they were talking about specifically in it. I tried to do the research. I couldn't figure it out. Maybe when I get to that point in the book I'm reading, I'll talk about it. But they had a geodesic dome-looking thing, a big jungle gym with Donkey Kong Country trees and a big logo and everything, just like they do now. It looked really cool.
It did look really cool,
And you
actually.
walk inside, and it was all jungly. And Donkey Kong Country was definitely kind of their game of the show. They're really showing that off. And they also had kiosks for Super Game Boy, showing off Game Boy games, which... thinking back, that was a plug-in that you put in your Super Nintendo to play a Game Boy on TV. And I don't remember it being that early, but it was. And they also had an NES game there, Wario's Woods.
That's right. They also had a big Maximum Carnage booth.
Yeah,
wow.
Most importantly,
nice.
had a dude playing with a Super Scope 6. Yeah.
That convergence of video game eras is kind of crazy if you think about it.
Oh,
the Jaguar,
Yep.
the Game Boy, also NES and Super NES.
So much dead
It's
plastic.
pretty amazing. And then Donkey Kong Country still feels like a modern era game. It's not like just because the graphics were rendered 3D.
Yeah, I think it's great. What do you think of Donkey Kong Country?
We don't need to
Don't get him started. It definitely is a game that shows really well. I'm sure it was impressive when it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, first time, of course.
I remember going to a Best Buy the Christmas that came out, and they had one of those massive 11 TV displays, displaying it all the way on the wall, and people just crowding around and be like, "Holy crap, look at this thing!"
Super Scope, on the other hand, did not
so much.
display well. And I bought one. I don't know why.
Super Scope?
I went to a store. I played it. I'm like, this sucks.
Well,
Mom,
Safari
I need this.
Cool.
And
What's
then I
the
saved
game
up
it
all
came
this
with?
money.
It's called
Yoshi's
Blast
Bad
something.
Game.
It came with 6 games,
Super
right?
Scope.
The Yoshi Safari stuff, or what was it called, right?
Yeah,
well, there was only,
Safari.
I think there were only a handful of games made for it, but 6 of them were on one card.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then they put out 1 or 2 other games on their own. Like
I
Yoshi
bought it
Safari.
too because I saw it. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be like Rambo.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then you have it on your shoulder. You're like,
Yeah,
was
he
the
had
Mario
shooting
movie
eggs.
before that when he used it at the end? Because he used it at the end of the Mario movie to kill Koopa.
Well,
that's
it's
right.
before
Before that?
1994, and the Super Scope 6 actually launched really close to the Super Nintendo.
Oh,
Because
really?
that's like more like 1992.
Oh,
but it was at this for some other game that we were seeing.
Yeah,
they had
yeah.
it's funny seeing displays for games that are totally forgotten.
It was
in
like
a
Tin
Nintendo
something,
booth.
Tin Cup, or Tin
Star.
Tin Star.
That's what it was. Thank you. Yeah,
Tin
it was.
Cup.
I think that's a cowboy shooting game. So let's skip ahead to something we know much more about because I believe you were there. In 1999, Nintendo E3 was happening in Los Angeles by that point, And Nintendo was there with another Donkey Kong game, Donkey Kong 64.
Boo!
And a bunch of other 64 games, which I have a list of here. And by the way, we have a really nice History of Nintendo at E3 Wiki.
Yeah.
Check that out. I'm using that as a resource right now on Dead Trees. But they also announced the Dolphin.
Yeah.
What's the Dolphin, Per?
The Dolphin is the GameCube.
No, they didn't know that at the time.
Well, no, they announced it as...
Forget everything you know.
They
What's the
announced it
Dolphin?
as the Dolphin. It was supposed to be this amazing new project, and it was going to usher Nintendo into the disc era. So they announced it, as a device being built, and it was just a code name, right? We actually have some bags that still say Dolphin on them,
awesome.
like developer bags and stuff. So IBM and Panasonic were the two big partners, right? And
Yeah, there's even a slide that we have on this wiki that you can check out of like what the presentation looked like. It looks like a PowerPoint presentation with IBM and Panasonic.
Yep.
And then a
it was
Dolphin logo, which looks very strange.
It was very dry, like the way it was announced to, and it was very much focused on the technology that Nintendo would not be left behind, like with the N64.
Was it Howard
They
Lincoln
didn't
that
say
was
that. It was Howard Lincoln. Yeah, they didn't ever reference that, but they said, "Hey, our partners are more interested in this technology and blah blah blah." That's where we're going. They also said it would play back DVDs.
Yep.
That's when people actually really got passionate about formats of storage units. you know? Like nowadays, if you're just like, oh, the PS4 is shipped on a quadruple gig double layer, no one cares.
Yeah.
So give me the game. Nobody cares.
And that was Panasonic's, like ace in the game. It's like they would be building the drive and all that, and you would be able to market the Dolphin as a DVD player. And what of course happened is like it never shipped as a DVD player. It shipped as the GameCube, which used a completely different disc format because Nintendo didn't want, were worried about privacy, didn't want the standard DVDs.
But Per, I don't understand. We have a GameCube that plays DVDs.
So that was the Panasonic angle. Then, in order to probably make good on their contract with Panasonic, they put out a special unit called the Panasonic Q.
Yeah.
And it only came out in Japan. And it's this cool,
It's chrome.
Silver.
It's chrome, and it's really cool, and it actually has an optical audio out and all that, which, by the way, does not transfer the game sound. You have to use analog for the game sound. But it was kind of like as if somebody had taken a GameCube and then also put a DVD player into it.
It looks, when you look at it, it looks very jerry-rigged. It looks nice, but it does not look like an actual thing. It looks like
it's awesome, but it had all these features like you could time it to turn off and all that kind of stuff you couldn't do with consoles back then, which all had these push buttons, right? Flap. Like
So just to wrap up 1999, there were a couple other things there, including a giant Pokemon booth because Pokemon was in full swing then, and then which I thought was funny. The Episode 1 Racer had a huge booth, and you can watch a video of that booth on our site. It's in the part of the Nintendo booth of who's the kid that played
Jake Lloyd.
Jake Lloyd, like being a total jerk to this TV reporter. He's like because he's just beating him over and over again in racing.
Being a kid.
It's brutal, man.
Yeah,
well,
but
he's being a kid who was just in a Star Wars movie. He's just like he thinks he is a pod racer.
Episode 1 Racer was a big deal, by the way. We went to the Skywalker Ranch to see it before E3. And LucasArts is gone now, but they were pain in the ass. They were a really hard company to work with, and they made us sign all these NDAs, and like anytime we even wrote about a Star Wars game and we had heard something from a source somewhere, they'd freak out and tell us we'd be blacklisted forever and all that. But they did invite us in to see the game, probably so that we would sign something.
You get blacklisted from covering Masters of Terras Kasi.
And we had we had all
That's a Star Wars fighting game for people that don't.
We were all anticipating the game because nobody had seen anything on the movie. Like there was no footage,
so
anything was shown. So we
yeah.
saw the racers in the game before we saw the trailer for the new
awesome.
Star Wars movie.
That's awesome.
And we weren't that happy with the game, of course. It was kind of
or the movie
slow and all that. Well,
I don't know, the game was fine.
It was okay.
People of a certain age think it's fine, and then I think it's crap.
Yeah.
I'm with you,
I was a
Sam.
baby.
I talked to some people in the office, and they remember
really
it
fondly
as
remember
like it's one of the best racers of all time.
People kept coming over while I was watching that video, like, "Wow, Pod Racer!"
Well, Rogue Squadron was already out, so you were expecting something awesome like that.
Yeah, and TIE Fighter and stuff. So, just as a side note, too, Nintendo had another conference in August, right after E3, called Space World. Space World 1999, they announced, or they talked a lot about 64DD stuff, which never came out. And I don't want to dwell on that, but that was going on at the time, and there's a really cool list of games that was coming to the 64.
They showed Zero Zelda?
Yeah.
Uda Zelda.
Uda Zelda.
Exactly. So, in 2004, the Game Boy Advance had been out for a little while. The GameCube had no good games out for it. and a new guy we'd never really seen before named Reggie hit the stage at E3 at a press conference and said, "My name is Reggie, and I'm about kicking ass, I'm about taking names, and we're about making games." That's the original quote from that. It was surprising at the time.
We went crazy for this when this happened. Nintendo fans went crazy for this.
And he was showing off the DS was showing off at this. And then, of course, Shigeru Miyamoto came out to the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack and had a sword and shield, and they showed Twilight Princess.
Well, because remember how he ended this? And he's like, and now before we go, I want to bring you to one more world. And he walked away, and everything went dim.
Smoke went up. There's
smoke went up, and you hear everyone in the crowd like, "Oh my god!"
Because they showed a pan of a field. You couldn't tell what it was.
Yeah. That was just when it was Link in front of the door or in front of the gate.
It wasn't even called. It
was Twilight Princess,
but it wasn't called Twilight Princess.
No,
it was just a little. We just knew it was realistic.
Yeah. Was this the one where they gave out the Zelda preview disc, or was that the next year?
The trailer was that year? I don't remember.
I
just remember I am not Link, but I do know him, and then he's like,
"Yep,
glad you said that."
Sword and everything.
It's really funny.
It was very cute because they're so. I mean, before that, Nintendo's always been so buttoned up and proper. And then Reggie does this whole I'm kicking ass thing.
Yeah.
And then Miyamoto is there with a sword and shield.
So it's really funny because that Reggie moment and that Miyamoto moment are so iconic to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when I looked at the wiki, I looked at the list of games that were playable there and shown there, and it was awful. It was terrible. Do you have the list there?
Well, I have some of them. I mean, they had trailers for Metroid Prime 2 and Resident Evil 4, which were both good. But then, the list of games, I did not bring that one in.
You're right. The presentation of everything was great.
It was a low year.
Yeah, it made you forget all the games that were actually playable, and there were a lot of recycled games.
It was announcements not playable. Yeah, that's what it was.
Well, that was it was just so good to see Nintendo they were kind of cocky again. It was just nice to have Reggie on stage, and he's like, "I don't give a crap about those."
It's really rare that Nintendo does stuff like that.
Yeah,
and they have to be, they have to have something in their pocket to do it.
And he literally had a DS in his pocket, I think.
But that press conference
that wasn't a DS, my friend.
That press conference was all about we listened to everything fans said in the prior year. Let's do something that makes them really happy.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
No Wind Waker surprise, which at the time was negative. Right, the change in art style. They gave people the art style they wanted, and it was just everybody was really excited walking out of that press conference.
What else happened at this press conference? The name The Revolution.
That's right. They first started talking.
That's it.
Which was a good name.
So they showed that Twilight Princess demo, and they showed Minish Cap. But the other games there were Steel Divers, Pac Pix, Super Mario 64 DS, Metroid Prime Hunters, Odama, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, Donkey Kong King of Swing,
I remember that.
Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories.
Jungle Beat was good.
Rough year.
Yeah, that was a rough year.
All of them felt like B-tier titles, right?
Yeah.
Even Jungle Beat, it's a great game, but it's you play it and you're like, okay, this is the game that they release when they don't have
this is like the Diddy Kong Racing,
right? Yeah,
the stopgap.
Exactly.
Yeah,
which is also good.
Or Tropical Freeze.
And by the way, Odama is, I think it's so awesome. It's a terrible game, mechanically and everything, but it's
so original.
It's a medieval bowling game with voice control.
Yeah. And how can you go wrong? A little clip for your GameCube controller.
Yeah, with the microphone. Yeah, so weird.
It's so good.
Pac Pix was crazy too. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that at all.
Pac Pix was a game where you drew gigantic, demented Pac-Men, and then just sent them on the screen to be like, "Kill me!" And they would their fat, floppy mouths would bounce against the wall and then eat ghosts and pellets and then die.
Yeah, so Scribble came to life.
Yeah.
You had to draw him facing
that's
left.
pretty cool.
And Pac-Man would go left like this. You drew him like this, he'd go up. But they'd always look really horrible and crooked, at least mine.
There was a bunch of tech demos that were playable that year, I guess, on the DS.
Yeah, it was the first showing of the DS.
One of them was this Sonic the Hedgehog game that you would scratch the screen like crazy to make him rev up and run.
In his ball mode, yeah.
Yeah, and that never actually made it out. It might have something like that might have made it into a mini game in one of the Sonic games, but a lot of those tech demos either died on the floor or they were released like Pac Pix. We were like,
even Steel Diver took a long time to come out, right? There were a lot of things just showing you the capabilities of a touchscreen system, and
Steel Diver took 10 years to come out.
Not really, but
that was a different game, right?
Yeah, on 3DS.
It was a sequel.
No, there wasn't a Steel
Diver. It never came out on DS.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No,
I didn't know
that. It was just a demo of the sub going up and down.
Interesting.
And all.
So I love these 5-year jumps because that was the very beginning of the DS's existence, and this is right, kind of at the end of it, because between 2008, E3 2008, E3 2009, we're talking about 2009, the DSi was announced, which wasn't that big of a deal, but going into E3, they didn't have like really any consoles to announce or any new hardware. So instead, they showed in their press conference, they announced new Super Mario Bros. Wii, Super Mario Galaxy 2, The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, and Metroid the Other M. That is such an amazing lineup. And I remember they had something from every franchise at this E3, and it was so amazing.
Yeah, and the Other M trailer, like I think
Ryan
now,
and Pear were both there.
now people look back at Other M and said that game was flawed. You know, storytelling was weird. It wasn't as good as Prime. But when the trailer debuted, it's like from the makers of Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah,
you're
like,
you know, it was it was mind blowing that they would partner with this company, and everybody at that point said, "Hey, that's awesome. They're actually trying something different, third person game."
Yeah, you make a really good point. That you have to be able to separate what it like. The moment of what it was like to experience that during E3 versus what the final product was. A lot of times the games come out and you play them and you're not happy and you're soured with the memories and stuff like that. But when a lot of these games were debuted for the first time, especially like Metroid Prime 2, which we now look back on as like the weakest of the bunch, had a great debut.
So excited for
and I was so excited for it. Yeah. And same with this, and this was my first E3. It was my first day working for IGN.
Wow.
Was you guys booked me a flight out of New Jersey to Los Angeles.
That was nice.
And I flew and I got off the plane, I dropped my bags off at the hotel, and I went and met everybody at IGN.
That's awesome.
And the next morning I was at press conferences and
that's so cool.
going to preview events and all this crazy stuff. And it blew my mind, It was just so... It was incredible to be on the outside of that for so long and then to suddenly be there for such a big year for Nintendo, especially as such a big Nintendo fan like
I thought you were a cartoonist.
Really?
Yeah. When you're at the show, I'm like, why'd we bring the cartoonist? What's he going to do here?
I was a cartoon.
Didn't you come on to do like comedy stuff at the time? Yeah, right?
I'm still doing it, Pear.
That's comedy.
When are you going to be funny?
God damn it.
Right.
So that was also crazy that they had 2 Mario games.
Yep.
Like 2 console Mario games.
So that was actually had 2 Zelda games too. I'm about to get to.
That was kind of like the answers, like, oh man, it'd be so awesome if they did a 2D Mario game. They're like, here it is, and then like, oh that's great, but what about here it is?
It's like, okay. I'll shut up.
And Galaxy 2, it already looked amazing by the time they'd shown it.
Yeah.
They had a lot to show.
And they showed Yoshi.
So then, right after the expo floor, opened up and everything, they held like a little press meeting, and during it, there was like a poster. I think Miyamoto showed some kind of card or poster or something with a realistic Link and this woman in front of him. And they didn't give a name or anything, but this was the first inkling of Skyward Sword's existence.
And a lot of people figured it out, looking at the artwork, saying she looks like a sword, like her shape looked like it. And Miyamoto
he distinctly doesn't have a sword in his hand.
No, he gave the hint saying, you can see what the game is about by looking at the picture, right? And so everybody said, okay, the sword is probably going to be a big deal. Okay, it's for the Wii. That means it's going to be sword control.
He was wrong. That's
right?
not what the game was.
Yeah.
It's going to be 50 hours and it's going to be overrated.
But in the end, you
Brian's
saw,
going to stop playing after
40. You saw what it was about. And also Scribblenauts was at the show.
That's what's really cool about this E3 is that a DS game from a third party won our game of the show.
Yeah. It won ours. I was working for GameSpy, which was an old IGN property.
So GameSpy and IGN both gave.
And we went and we played the Call of Duty Modern Warfare or whatever, and all these other, like Batman was one of the big ones that year.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers booths was just Batman and Scribblenauts. And Scribblenauts was on a kiosk that was the size of...
On the back, too.
Yeah, it was hidden in the back. It was by, like, a hot dog stand in a bathroom. And everyone was like, the last day of E3 is notoriously, everyone says, this is what you need to go see. So all your coworkers who were lucky enough to run around on the show floor, everyone's frantic all week. They go check out Scribblenauts. Is this game? Any word you write, it appears in the game. And we're like, no way. And we go and we check it out, and we're like, it totally does. Yeah. And that's the case example of, like, when the game finally came out, it was very hard to play because you couldn't move the character and write words at the same time. You had to drag the screen and blah, 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 blah. But the concept, just this vertical slice, as we call them in the industry, of walking up to this kiosk and being like, sheep. explosion and blowing up a sheep was fascinating.
And that's sort of the secret of E3 is that Game of Show is usually the best demo of the show. And so if you're able to make the best demo of the show, that's
sometimes the best concept too.
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
And there've been plenty of occasions where you see a game and you say that's amazing, and then the game turns out to be amazing. It's like the GTAs and the Last of Us and all that Uncharted, where you can tell in the beginning that it's great and it turns out great. There's sometimes games like Alien, like the last Alien, where we saw a demo. I was in that demo. I'm like, this is going to be cool, right? Like, this feels like Aliens. We weren't allowed to play it, but they showed us this cool demo and felt like the movie. And then in the end, the game comes out and we're like, what? This is not the same.
Yeah.
Scribblenauts was in between those. The concept was amazing, I thought. And, like, it's still so unique that somebody actually came up with that idea and had the balls to say, just write anything. We're like, Cthulhu.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden oh my god, it's in there. Yeah, and like they'd stand behind you. They're like, "Oh, he put an adjective. We should think about adjectives."
And no, you're right. I mean, Scribblenauts wasn't bad. It was like good. A 7. But people read IGN and they're like, "Oh, well, they gave their game of the year to a 7." Well, no, we didn't. We gave our game of the show to a 7. Yeah. We gave our game of the show to the best game that.
Yeah, we played.
And it was also as cool as New Mario Wii and Mario Galaxy 2. It was awesome to see something that was like, this is new,
totally new.
Like this is completely new. This is not an upgrade of a DS game or a sequel to a really rad Wii game. This is something completely different.
It also kind of caps a generation of games that were on 3DS or on DS that would have probably done even much better on iPhone.
Yep.
Yeah. It was like this is an essential portable game.
Yeah.
And those are getting fewer and fewer.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to wrap this up because 5 years after 2009 is in 25 days from now. We have to prepare for E3 2014.
Maybe the vitality sensor will come back.
Yeah, and actually I think that's going to be our question of the week. Our question of the week, unless you guys have already asked this before, which I'm not sure, I have a second backup question, is seriously, what's Nintendo's hardware announcement at E3 this year? Did we ask that one yet?
I don't think we asked that one.
No,
I don't think
not
so.
technically.
I just want to hear what people's crazy ideas are. That's what I want to hear. I want to have a big backstock because then I can find that person when they're absolutely right and be like, dude, you're right. It was a giant drivable Mario Kart.
There have been a lot of hints as to like new hardware concepts.
That already exists, though.
The question is if those hints will come true in time for E3, right? Like the whole a special unit for China, talk about Android-powered link-ups and all that are out there. So it's going to be interesting.
I think it's going to be called the Revolution.
Yeah, it's going to be the revolution.
One thing I know for sure is that Nintendo's completely insane. And I say this all the time, and I say it in the nicest way possible.
That's why I love them. Yeah.
And I love seeing what they do, because it's always like everyone's expecting them to follow this certain path, and they're like, nope, diagonal. And they just go totally crazy.
Last year we got to hear about 2 new consoles for the first time, and that was really exciting. But every year for Nintendo, we don't know what's going to happen. That's why it's exciting.
Yeah.
Where I pretty much have Microsoft and Sony nailed for this year.
Yeah.
So we have to wrap this up. But thanks for listening so much. You can download many more podcasts at IGN or on the iTunes or podcast app. We'd really like you to rate this show. I don't know if we make call-outs for that a lot, but I was noticing that there's almost no ratings, and it really, really helps us to have ratings on iTunes or the podcast app. You can write us at nvc@ign.com to answer our questions. Seriously, what's Nintendo's hardware announcement at E3 this year? Or you can follow us on Twitter and tweet at us at
PearIGN,
Agent Bizzle,
Mick Biggity.
I can't believe we got Agent Bizzle and Mick Biggity in the room finally at the same time. It's great. And I'm Samuel_IGN. That is all I have. Thank you so much for listening. And Jose will be back next week for Nintendo Voice Chat.
Get the thing.
Beyond.